let the car sit for a while and we filled it up with gas, so cross our fingers, cross our fingers. Yep, this thing's still lighting up like a Christmas tree. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're gonna be doing a road trip in an Acura NSX, and you guys are probably wondering, well, where the heck is the NSX? Well, we have to go pick it up from the owner, and of course, we're gonna take the TRX down because I think this is the coolest vehicle to show up in if we're gonna be picking up an NSX today. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to the owner of the NSX, Kyle, for lending it to me for the day. He's literally given me his NSX for a whole day to take it on a road trip and obviously have a ton of fun with the car. So go follow him on Instagram, link in the description to his Instagram. And I mean, if you guys aren't already following him, he has a brand new TRX, and trust me, his taste is way better than mine. His TRX is a launch edition that he actually is recently wrapping. He's not wrapping in an ugly color like me, so it actually looks really good. And then obviously he has the NSX, whereas the sporty-ish car that I have on the channel is a Ford Focus hatchback. Yeah, go follow him and let's get into the video. We all knew this was coming. We are now officially inside the NSX, and of course, we've got to do a startup here. Oh boy, is she loud and does she sound good. And a lot of people, by the way, requested that I do the trip fuel economy. So I'm going to reset the fuel economy and give you guys the fuel economy at the end of the whole road trip. As you can see, we've got the trip set, so we'll be able to see the fuel economy after the whole road trip. We've got the TRX secured there in the driveway. Now all of Kyle's neighbors are gonna think he has two TRXs, because once he gets home, he's gonna have his launch edition right next to mine. And yeah, everyone's gonna think that he's got two now, which is pretty funny, but let's set off. I'm sure the question that's really on all of your guys' minds is this thing fast enough to get up to highway speeds? The answer is yes. We're just a little ways into the road trip, and obviously you guys want some impressions, so let's talk about how this car drives on the interstate and as a road trip vehicle. So first off, the seats are extremely comfortable so far. Like, the bolsters are just wide enough that you can just comfortably sit in, but they're not so wide that you slip around and slide all over the place. Like, they hold you in place nice, but they don't squeeze you to death. And the bottom portion, the cushion's very comfortable, so it just isn't painful at all. So far, we are averaging over 20 miles per gallon. I just have the car in the quiet mode. There's no need to be in any other drive mode because, right, we don't want the car to be super loud and obnoxious because we're highway cruising for hundreds of miles. And so we want it to be quiet. And the suspension's really smooth on the NSX. Like, I'm very surprised with how compliant the suspension is with the NSX. Like, when you go over bumps and stuff, you hear it a little bit, but it doesn't upset the car, and it doesn't really rattle you or anything like that. Like, it's very smooth and comfortable. I would actually be extremely comfortable with driving this car every single day just because of how compliant the suspension is. And I think we're gonna average like well over 20 miles per gallon with this road trip because we're doing really good so far. Now, as I've driven the car a little bit more, I've discovered a few things about it. So first off, it does have Apple CarPlay, which is awesome. And I don't have the navigation popped on or anything like that because for most of the route, I'm just gonna be like kind of like a straight shot on the same interstate. So I don't really need navigation until I'm pretty close to the destination. The other thing that I noticed that's kind of annoying is the fact that it doesn't have adaptive cruise control. So remember, this car brand new is over $200,000. I get it, it's a super car, it's meant for track driving, weekend driving, you know, impressing the ladies, all that kind of stuff. But still, 200 grand and they couldn't put adaptive cruise control in it, it's kind of annoying. So like, what I've been doing is I'll set my cruise control, and then obviously traffic has its ebb and flow, so it'll slow down, speed up, all that kind of stuff. And the speeding up is fine because then I can just press the little button and go up. But when it slows down, obviously I have to intervene because it's, you know, you can't press the button fast enough to be able to slow down. So a little bit annoying. The other thing is the button isn't super responsive. Like, sometimes I press it and it doesn't actually do anything. And the other thing I noticed, it doesn't show you what speed you have the cruise control set to. So you have the speedometer, which shows you how fast you're going, but it doesn't say cruise control set to 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour. It just lets you just have to like know what you have it set to. So that's another weird little quirk. And then also the steering on this car, it's super like quick and responsive, which is great when you're on a racetrack or, you know, driving this up and down a canyon like I drove this car. But on the highway, it's kind of, it's kind of freaky because you have to, like, obviously you want to be paying attention when you drive. Unless you're a smug Tesla owner, then I guess you don't have to pay attention, and then your car will decide to crash. And no, I'm just kidding. But the steering inputs are so quick on this car, and I gotta unplug that because it's kind of getting in the way. The steering inputs are so quick on the car that you really need to pay attention to what you're doing with the wheel, or you'll like end up way in another lane. Because I mean, look at this, like, we're turning. In any other car, I'm gonna have the wheel turned way over. This, you barely turn the steering wheel. So definitely another interesting thing for the highway driving with the NSX. But minor complaints aside, it's doing a really good job so far as a highway vehicle. Like, I would actually really love to drive one of these cross country. Like, it would be a really good vehicle to do that. And now I'm gonna get back to listening to my classical music. Well, we are a little bit farther along, and I was actually seeing over 23 miles per gallon at one point. Now at this point, the flow of traffic's been a little bit faster, and so the MPG's gone down just a little bit below 23. But now I want to talk about the drive modes. So what I've noticed about the drive modes is in track mode, the car is extremely aggressive, gets horrible fuel economy, but it's fast, it sounds good. I mean, it makes sense, right? It's a track mode. The Sport Plus mode is the same way, just not as aggressive as the track mode. And then the Sport mode is kind of like in between the track mode and the quiet mode. The Sport mode, you get like decent acceleration, but then it'll also like return decent fuel economy. The quiet mode, you get the best fuel economy. But the funny thing about quiet mode is it seriously neuters the car. Like, if you floor it to pass someone in quiet mode, like, it's so slow. It's crazy. Like, this car has so much power, but in this quiet mode, it does, like, again, it basically is like, okay, fuel economy and efficiency is our top priority, so it doesn't downshift. It doesn't do anything quick to make it so you can accelerate fast, because again, it's itemized, or it's kind of like putting fuel economy at the front end of things. So it's just weird to be in a supercar like this and then you floor it and literally like nothing happens. It's hilarious. Like, look, I'm gonna slow down a little bit because there's nobody behind me, so I don't have to be rude or anything, but look at this. Like, that's in the quiet mode, okay? Like, literally no acceleration whatsoever. And then we'll pop it over into the Sport Plus mode, and again, we'll kind of create a little bit of space, slow down here quite a bit. Like, the difference between the two drive modes is so ridiculous. I've never been in a car that there is that much difference in the acceleration with the drive modes. So I purposely have the camera angled this way for reasons. We are, of course, in the mountains of Mexico, and oh my Lord. Whew. We are again back in Mexico, and I figured I'd give you guys a from the standstill acceleration, I guess. Crazy day over here at Chandler's. He still has all the cars parked outside. And by the way, shout out to Chandler for giving me some fruit snacks. I have a horrible addiction with fruit snacks. But we've got some bad news. Everything was going good with this road trip, and then the car randomly, decided to throw a check engine light, having a parking brake issue. It's still driving normal, and I've got the go-ahead to drive it back home, and hopefully something doesn't happen. But we might be getting stranded in today's road trip. This is kind of scary, but I'll give you guys some updates as things happen. Now, we let the car sit for a while and we filled it up with gas, so cross our fingers, cross our fingers. Yep, this thing's still lighting up like a Christmas tree. Oh boy, should be a fun drive home. So I figured I'd give you guys an update. Pretty long drive tonight, and also you guys can kind of see the NSX at night, kind of what everything looks like here. And yes, the gauge cluster is still lit up like a Christmas tree. So far the car's been driving great. It appears that it is just a sensor that's kind of going haywire because of the exhaust on the car. And I mean, the car's running perfectly fine. I mean, we've driven almost another 200 miles, and like, it's been super uneventful. And so yeah, at this point, I mean, it's nothing to worry about. So what it sounds like is, again, the car is an aftermarket exhaust, and the aftermarket exhaust is triggering the sensor that's associated with the emission system, which is also somehow attached with the parking brake. I don't know why. That's how Acura built it. But because they built out the system like that, having those sensors attached to each other, it's happening. So yeah, it's not, I mean, mechanically everything's completely fine. And I know I'm gonna get in the comments now, oh my gosh, the NSX is not reliable and this and that. That's not true. Like, I mean, obviously the car is reliable. We are driving fine. Everything is all good. And we're actually getting a little bit worse fuel economy because, well, I've been driving a little bit quicker because I really want to get home at this point. But yeah, I mean, the car's been running flawlessly. Obviously, this whole thing popped up, but I mean, initially I thought it was going to be a big deal, but it's really not a big deal whatsoever. So once we get this back to Kyle's, all Kyle's going to have to do is just clear basically the check engine lights and just keep driving the car and just move on with life. It doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with it, which that's the good news. The bad news, I still have like over an hour of driving. So yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys as soon as everything is wrapped up. But that's pretty much everything for today's video. A little bit of a scare, but I think we're gonna make it back in one piece. Well, I'd show you guys my face, but you aren't gonna be able to see it because it's super dark, and we are pretty much all the way back. You guys can see the total trip is just over 500 miles. We're 534 miles. By the time we get all the way back, we'll be like 540-ish, something like that for the whole trip. Averaged about 20 miles per gallon, which, I mean, all things considered with the crazy driving and all that kind of stuff, I think that's really good fuel economy for doing a highway trip, having some fun with the car, and, you know, doing some passes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, overall, definitely fun. And this thing keeps going off. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, and again, seriously, go follow Kyle on Instagram. Like, he is a legend for letting me drive this NSX for over 500 miles. I mean, who else would let someone do that? That's what I thought. I'll see you guys. Just realized I forgot to give the final updates on the whole check engine light situation and all that. So at this point, you guys need to just assume that this is because of the exhaust. If it's anything else, then I'll give you guys an update video. But at this point, it popped on because of the exhaust, so it's not actually an issue or anything like that. And now that's all for today's video.